So this is Include. We're a charity based in Redhill, and our vision and our mission is that no one is excluded because of understanding or speaking difficulties, and everyone is included with the right communication. That's what we would really like to see. And the reason for that is that people who have understanding and speaking difficulties often can be very isolated, very lonely, and have mental health difficulties. They have health inequalities. So you don't necessarily get the same treatment from the health service if you have an understanding or speaking difficulty. You're less likely to have work, to have a job. And sadly, we know that there's also a higher risk of being involved in the criminal justice system. So a lot of young people who have undiagnosed, unrecognised understanding or speaking difficulties or social skills difficulties can often end up getting into trouble because people haven't realised the difficulties that they have. So just to explain a little bit about why this charity exists. So my background is, as Frida said, so I forgot to put my phone on mute, sorry. So my background is a speech and language therapist. So I worked mainly, just making sure that doesn't happen again. I work mainly with adults with learning disabilities and dementia and autism. But personally, before I was a speech therapist, my father had a brain tumour, which meant that he lost the ability to speak. My grandfather had a stroke, which meant he lost the ability to understand easily. So within a couple of years, when I was in my 20s, I had a really personal introduction to what it was like, what happened to people when their communication was affected for different reasons. And I suspect that is why I ended up training as a speech and language therapist. Later, when I became a safeguarding lead, I saw again how many vulnerable adults had communication difficulties and how vulnerable people were because of their communication needs. So I left the NHS in 2016 and I set up Include. A lot of people think that maybe not many people have communication difficulties. And it's interesting because actually I think this includes lots more than we think. So I'm going to ask you all a quiz here. What percentage of people in the UK, Jacob's not allowed to answer, by the way, what percentage of people in the UK would you say had communication difficulties that have been diagnosed? Any guesses?
30%.
Pretty good. Frida, would you reckon?
I was thinking 15, but possibly 30, yeah.
Oh, Enrique, what do you think?
I think 40%.
Interesting. Actually, do you know what? The official stats are lower, they're 20%, but in actual fact, these are pre-pandemic stats. These haven't been updated. The 30 to 40% is now much, much more realistic, including children, including adults. And that's because of the effects of the pandemic on children's speech and language development, the effects of children with ADHD, with autism. So I need to put this into this slide because these are way out of date, and you are correct, it is closer to 30, 40% these days. That includes 1.5 million people with learning disabilities. The official stats still are 750,000 people with autism, but there's over 100,000 people waiting for diagnosis for autism. So we're at least 850 to 9,000. Similarly with dementia, it says 950,000, but that doesn't include the people awaiting diagnosis and the people who are not being supported. So we're probably looking at 1 million at least in each area. And that doesn't include people with Parkinson's, people who've had a brain injury, people who have MND or any other number of conditions, or in fact, the children with developmental language delay. So it's a massive, massive issue. And in Surrey, so Include works mainly with people with learning disabilities and autism, a little bit with people with dementia as well. And we have a higher than average population of people with learning disabilities and autism in Surrey because of when the hospitals, we had long stay hospitals that people were put away into in times gone by. And they were in a big ring around London. And when they closed, people were relocated into the Surrey area. So we actually have many more people historically with learning disabilities and autism. We also have an older than average population, which means we have a greater than average population of people with dementia. So it's a big need in Surrey as well as nationally. And whatever the cause of a communication difficulty, the needs are the same. And that was what I learned actually when I became a speech and language therapist working with people with learning disabilities. I spent pretty much every day going, oh, I wish that I had known this when my dad was alive. I wish I'd known this when my grandpa was around, because all of the things that I learned to help people with learning disabilities be included were the things that would have helped my dad and my grandpa. So I felt very passionately that people needed to know more about inclusive communication and more about what they could do to help so that people weren't so isolated when they had a communication need. And it's not just about feeling good. During the pandemic, people with learning disabilities were 6 times more likely to die of COVID than the general population, which is an insane figure when you think about it. And there's lots of different reasons for that, including living situation, but a big part of that was difficulties in understanding guidance, difficulties in complying with treatment, being treated as though you weren't as worthwhile as somebody else by doctors because you didn't speak the same as other people. So it's such a big issue that I believe needs change. And we use something called the social model of disability. So, Rukia, if you're interested in East Surrey Hospital as well, this is kind of relevant, hopefully, because communication needs come up a huge amount in the volunteering roles at East Surrey too, I know. And if you treat people with a medical model, which is what doctors have to do, is they go, oh, where's the problem with you and how can we fix it? The social model of disability, which is a newer model and was invented by people with disabilities, so people who found things hard were saying, well, hang on, I've got a problem that's here all my life. It's not going away. Problem's not me. It's everybody else around me and everything else around me. And so the social model says, what can we do to take away barriers? How can we help people be more included in society by the way that we act and the things that we build? And so with people with a wheelchair, you can understand it's like steps are a barrier, so you build a ramp. But for communication difficulty, it's a bit harder to imagine what does a ramp look like for a communication need. And our personal belief is that the first thing we need to do is raise awareness of communication needs. So just by talking today, I feel like we're doing a little bit. So we're talking to you, Rukia, about communication disability. Hopefully that will mean that it's something that comes into your mind more easily in the future. And we also raise awareness of people's rights, because there are laws to protect the rights of people with communication needs. We don't know very much about them, usually, until we have a parent, a friend, or a family member who needs support, and then suddenly we find out about them. We believe it would be better if people knew about them earlier on. We want to increase understanding of what inclusive communication is. So all the stuff that we teach at Include is inclusive communication. I'll talk a bit more about that afterwards. We want to build confidence and self-advocacy skills in people with communication needs. So if you have a communication difficulty, you can be quite shy and quite not confident about speaking out. Maybe, I don't know, Rukia, but maybe it's the same if you have English as a second language. I used to teach English as a second language. Does that sound?
Yes, this is my second language. Yeah.
So sometimes perhaps you can feel a little bit nervous of speaking out. And it's very similar, I think. I would love to get together with more charities who are involved with working with people for whom English is a second language. Because if we all did some Makaton signing and used signs and pictures, we could help people to learn each other's languages quicker, I think. We had a really interesting session actually a few weeks back where we did we have a session called Stroll and Sign, and we met a lady from Ukraine who was a refugee in Farnham, and she came and joined us on the sign, and we made a video dictionary with our iPad. So she taught us the words in Ukrainian for butterfly, and we taught her English and the signs, and it was a really lovely interaction. And I think it's something I think, oh, we could do more of that if only there was more time. There you go. And that's what we do. We do a lot of training as well. So we do formal training but we also train within the services that we provide. So everything we do is about teaching, but hopefully in a way that's fun and memorable and doesn't send people to sleep. Our values are really important to us. We did a big piece of work with our members with learning disabilities and autism and our staff and everybody to say what was it they thought about if they were with Include. And these what they came out with was kind, empowering, fun, inclusive and respectful. So those were the things that people thought were important and that we try and show in everything we do. But there's a kind of an invisible bit underneath that, which didn't come up, but actually is really important. Everything that we do is underpinned by speech and language therapy evidence and research. So we don't like to go on about that too much because it kind of sounds boring, but it's really important that we use those skills to provide the best services that we can so we can be all of those things. So that's kind of how we operate as much as possible to explain. And just in case this is a really boring explanation, but inclusive communication, if you haven't heard the term, just means sharing information in a way that everybody understands and recognizing that people understand and express themselves in different ways. So some of our members don't use speech, some use signs, some use sounds, a lot use body language, but all that stuff that we don't always think about, we recognise that that's important. And there is research to back that up, that a huge amount is from non-verbal, that we understand is from non-verbal communication. And you'll notice I'm doing my hands automatically. I tend to sign very automatically because it's sort of how I communicate and I'm now very conscious of it. So these are some of the things that we use to help people understand. And again, this was useful for the lady who didn't speak English that we met as well. So we use a lot of pictures. We use something called Magaton signing. We use iPads, we use objects. So some people, even pictures, are too hard to understand. People with severe learning disabilities, late stage dementia, 2D information stops being useful. But objects are still very useful and body language is still very useful. So we try and use all of those things all of the time. We try and make sure that our volunteers are aware of these things, that they're using them as well. And that way we try and make sure that everyone's included in what we do. And so the things that we do, we teach and train, we try and raise awareness, and we provide activities. And sometimes we have cake. We have to say that. That is a legal requirement from our members. When we wrote our rules about how we behaved to each other, we were told that we had to include sometimes we have cake sometimes. And I said, oh, I'm not sure that's really a rule, is it? No, it's really important. Well, okay, it's really important. So we put that in our agreement and we also have it on the back of our shirts. And we will be having cake tonight when we have a big sing in the park. So we try and, that's the sort of thing we try and do to sort of make things fun and inclusive. We're very conscious actually that people with learning disabilities often struggle with their weight. So we do have sometimes cake and make sure we have healthy choices as well. But it's become a bit of a thing about us. We've grown a lot since we started. We started with just the choir in 2016. We had 2 part-time staff, 6 volunteers in 2019, and we now have 10 part-time staff and 50 volunteers in 2023. And those volunteers are both local to Red Hill Reigate, and we're needing more and more of those local volunteers as we're growing more services locally. But during the pandemic, we acquired lots of volunteers from across the country who help us with online digital things, and they're a great help as well. So the different services we have, the Include Choir is our most well-known one, and that's our biggest one really. And they are a signing choir of people with and without disabilities. We use objects, as you can see as well, to get our message across, and we rehearse every week. Build confidence and share what we do with everybody every week. But we also go out and perform. So tonight, I was going to say tomorrow, if it's tomorrow, Jacob, I'm in trouble, I've missed it. Tonight, we're in the park in Red Hill, singing and signing and just raising awareness for Learning Disabilities Awareness Week. But we also, yesterday, were at a conference like the picture you can see there. So we helped to train doctors, nurses, social workers to remind them about the importance of communication. And yeah, all sorts of different things go on. So lots of trips out. I'm not going to go through these slides in detail, but that's our Include Choir. We also have a stroll and sign service where once a fortnight we go out, we walk. Again, we practice the signs we learn, we talk about what we see. A lot of people with learning disabilities and dementia and other communication needs don't have much opportunity to chat and be social. And that's really, really important in our sense of identity. So we use iPads, create stories that people can share, and teach support workers how to use those communication strategies. Our champions group makes easy read information with us, which we share freely for other people with learning disabilities and autism. They review our training and review external documents as well. So if other organisations want to be more inclusive, we can help them do that. And then with training, we teach Makaton signing, but we also teach other speech and language therapy accredited skills like talking mats. And then we do bespoke training. So we've done training for people looking after people with dementia, and we do training in care services, voluntary organisations, whatever. We've won some awards. Don't really need to go on about that. That feels a bit silly when there's a very small group, but it's really nice that we have grown over the last few years. We've had a lot of recognition for the work that we do, which we're really, really proud of. And I'm going to share a video before I hand over to Jacob. Sorry if I'm going on too long. We've got a short video to share, which I'll stop the share before I share it, because otherwise I know everything will go wrong. And this is a video just so you can hear from the voices of some of our members about what we do and why it's important to them.
Say hello.
Yes.
My name is
Lucia.
Lucia.
Kia.
And we sung
Yeah.
and we taught people how to sign.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? And you were very,
Happy.
weren't you? You were very happy. What was you doing? You was
Happy.
jumping. And what else was you doing?
Happy.
Dancing, weren't you? And you were singing.
I've been really lucky, the fact that I've met Include Choir several times in the past 6 or 7 years, and they just embody, especially with the irrepressible spirit of Alix, that anyone can have a voice, anyone can have a go at singing, anyone can be part of a choir, no matter if you have the skills or not, because there's always something for you to do. And it doesn't always have to be about singing or being part of the main choir, there's always the stuff behind the scenes. But it's just, you see the people in there and it's infectious when you actually watch them, because you actually want to join in, even though we're nurses ourselves, we're the worst people for doing Makaton. We should practice it a lot more, but we will be during the year.
Everybody has a voice and it should be heard, no matter who says it.
So what is your favourite Include Choir song?
Well, it's a
Oh, happy day, isn't it?
There we go.
That's because I'm mum.
Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. We're back together, singing together.
I'm very happy now that we found this group, because it shows me how life can be after college, and everybody here is happy, and yeah, it's kind of an insight into her future, but also it's tapping into her little world, and it's just great to be besides her in this group and not kind of leading her all the time, which is what you do as a mother, as a carer.
Richard, what do you feel like when you come to the Include Choir? How does it make you feel?
I enjoy it, yeah. It's just an enjoyable evening.
We're gonna sing and song every day.
I think the benefits that our residents get coming to Include Choir is it's building their confidence and their communication skills with each other. It's making them more sociable. It's nice to see how different they are when they're away from their home setting.
For me, it's really put my mind at rest, to be honest, about, you know, disabled adults, supported living, how they spend their time. The quality of what we get here is hopefully like that, above and beyond Include Choir, in those places that Lucia will go when she's in supported living. That's what I feel about this place anyway. It's real good quality stuff.
When people see the Include Choir perform, I want people to feel surprise
often people dismiss people with learning disabilities or people with communication needs as not being able to do things or not being able to contribute in the same way as the rest of us. I don't think that's true.
Do you know that how much they worked as a team? I think it was really lovely to see everybody so engaged and working together. I think that was what's really good.
They're a very good group. You've got a very good MD.
Thank you very much. You've been a lovely. What have you learned by coming to the Include Choir?
Friendship. Meeting new people.
Thank you. So a lovely video was put together partly by a volunteer, in fact, so we've been so lucky with the volunteers and the skills they have. Which brings me on to Jacob, because Jacob joined us, oh crumbs, well I'll let Jacob tell you that because he knows better than me, but Jacob's one of our very valuable volunteers and he's going to tell you a bit more from his perspective.
I think it was about 3 months ago now, so I'm still relatively new. Thank you, Alex. That was getting slightly emotional. Actually, that's such a beautiful video, and I think it, how to follow that. It just shows kind of what I love about the Include Choir. So many different things. But yeah, even in the short time I've been with Include, I've been able to see what an amazing charity it is, and what a difference it makes to people's lives. So I'm so pleased to sort of be here and hopefully able to encourage people maybe to come along and give it a try. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about my route into volunteering and what drew me to Include specifically, and then about what it's like actually being a volunteer for Include, and what my role is within the organisation, and what the choir sessions are like, because that's the bit that I do. So I'll try not to give you my whole life story. And if I look away from the screen, it's just I have a few notes. I've most dreadful memory, so I have to just try and keep myself on track. So I had to step away from work, from paid work last year, because of some health reasons. And I decided after a few months I wanted to see what was out there in terms of volunteering opportunities. So I'd done some voluntary work a long time ago when I was in my teens, but nothing since then. And when I was at work, working full time, I just didn't have the time to do it. So I was directed to VARB and to Lisa, and we met in a cafe in Redhill at the Harlequin. And she went through some of the volunteer jobs that she had available. And it just so happened that there was this charity called Include, which brings together, so two of my biggest things that my passions, two of the things I love the most in life are music and singing, and inclusivity and equality for people. And so it was a bit of a kind of a match made in heaven, really, that this charity existed, which I hadn't heard of before. And sort of one thing I'd say here is that you don't need, in order to volunteer with Include, I did happen to have some experience in music and singing, but I didn't have any experience in working with people with disabilities, or in doing the Macathon, the signing. So, I've been supported to learn those skills. So you really don't need to have any particular experience. The one thing that is important is like just a belief that everyone deserves to be included, regardless of their disability or health condition or whatever. And what one of the things I love about Include is, in terms of the volunteers, is that we do have such a range of different people volunteering for us, and lots of different experience, lots of different backgrounds. So we have people who work full-time, including full-time parents. We have students, so college students. We have retired older people, retired people. We have a married couple who come and volunteer together. So it's a real mix. And that kind of leads on quite nicely to, I wanted to talk about kind of what you can expect as a volunteer for Include, what kind of the charity is like for its volunteers. And, just talking about the real mix of people we've got, it really is a really inclusive environment, not just for the members who come and sing with us, but also for the volunteers. We've got a really open kind of culture, really open attitude towards everybody. And I felt really valued from the moment I joined and really, really welcomed. And something that I've heard from, certainly something I feel, but also I've heard from other volunteers, is that it is just kind of sort of somewhere you just be yourself, really. Which is really nice. I think when you come to work, a lot of places when you go to work, you don't get that. And I feel when I do my voluntary work at Include, I really can just be myself. I don't have to worry about that. So on the practical side, so what I do, I think Alix is going to talk in a minute about some of the actual different voluntary jobs, some of the roles that she has available. So what I do is at one of the choirs, so Include runs 2 choirs, one in Redhill and one in Epsom. And I volunteer at the Redhill one. So we help to set up the room, the rehearsal space. And then during the choir, we help the members, most of whom, not all, but most of whom have a learning disability or a speaking and understanding difficulty, to enjoy themselves and to engage with the session in whatever way is most sort of is best for them. Not everybody sings. Some people don't sing. They use sounds, like Alix said. Some people just like to dance. We get involved in the signing and the singing ourselves as well, if you want to. You don't have to. And then we have lots of different, like the objects that Alix was talking about, different props for the songs. So we have a song about butterflies, and we have lots of little, I get this the right way around, Alix, is it lots of little butterflies that we hand out to people. We have a song about flying on a jet plane, so we hand out it's a wooden plane. So that sort of thing, we hand those out to members. And there are lots of different jobs that you can do. You're usually kind of given, we have zones, color-coded zones, so you're usually assigned to a zone and you can focus on one particular thing. So that might be helping with the technology and the sound system. It might be helping with the refreshments. We film a song every week. We have a song of the week, so someone does that. And then we have we have a volunteer manager as well, a lady called Karen, who's excellent, and a lead volunteer called Sophia, and they're both wonderful. Sophia especially has been there for quite a long time, since Include started pretty much, and they're the main people that help us as volunteers if we need anything. But Alix is always there as well. She's at every choir session. Yeah, so that's more or less it. But I thought just lastly, I'd share kind of what I've got out of volunteering for Include so far. It's, volunteering it means a lot of different things to different people. So it's somewhere that I can just be myself. And that's something I've heard from other volunteers as well. But other than that, it's just amazing to be part of a community. It helps to give me some routine and focus and structure while I'm not working. Then there are those people who work full-time or are full-time parents, and then it gives them a chance to go and do something different and escape from kind of the normal life and do something a little bit different. And also for me, it's challenging me. It's giving me the opportunity to try new things that I would never have done before, especially the Makaton signing. So yeah, I can't encourage people to come. It can't encourage people enough to come along and give it a try, because it's been a brilliant experience for me so far. Yeah, and I'm sure will continue. So yeah, I will hand back to Alix now.
Thank you, Jacob. I'm really glad to hear the experience that you've had, Jacob, and I have to say you have brought an immense amount to the organisation, and all volunteers do. We couldn't function without them. Once upon a time, it was just a tiny thing with me, and as it's grown, I can't do it all on my own, and we're learning more and more how much we rely on people like Jacob to help us out and keep everything running, and we do what we do. So yeah, come and volunteer with us. We've got lots of roles for you, and I know Lisa's got a list of the roles and the different things. I forgot to say, is we do also have supported volunteers. We have a supported volunteering programme, so people who need a bit more support who might have a learning disability and autism are also really welcome to come and volunteer with us and work with our speech and language therapy team so we can personalise the support that's needed. But yeah, we have a lovely time and I'm looking forward to tonight.
Thank you so much, Alex. It's fantastic. And thank you, Jacob. It's an amazing charity. And it's so great to see you, you know, start from just yourself, Alex. And now you have so many people volunteering with you and working with you. And it's just great to see the charity has grown so much.
Big thanks to VARB. And actually, I can remember going into the VARB offices when I was just starting up the choir and asking you for some policies or something because I didn't know anything about charities and everything. So VARB has been an immense support, and it's really lovely to be part of that community that goes even broader than just include with other charities out there and with VARB. So thank you.
Thank you.